Welcome to the Atlantic Adventures Collection fan visit for Plymouth and Liverpool. My name is Jo Butler and I am the tourism lead on this Interreg project for Visit Plymouth. We are here today from the Crown Plaza Hotel in Plymouth with this wonderful backdrop of Plymouth Hull behind me. This project has brought together 9 Atlantic coast destinations: La Rochelle and Cannes in France, Cadiz and Faro in Spain, Ilavo in Portugal, Plymouth and Liverpool in the UK, and Cork and Limerick in Ireland. These destinations have come together to work on developing maritime, military and industrial heritage projects, including regeneration projects which are now accessible for visitors. The Atlantic Adventures Collection is one of these projects and is a collection of heritage tourism experiences brought together under 3 themed itineraries for the travel trade, showcasing products from each of our 9 destination partners. The itineraries are Spirit of Discovery, which is focusing on highlighting maritime heritage; Behind the Walls, which is looking at military heritage and fortification experiences; and Industrial Connections, focusing on industrial heritage. These itineraries can be found in the reception area on this event platform and will be sent to you after the event, so you can all have your own copies as well. Today we will showcase the unique and wonderful range of heritage visitor experience from Plymouth and Liverpool, and you will have the opportunity to meet our wonderful attractions in the networking sessions and also have the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A section. To keep in touch with the project and to find out more information about these great new experiences from all 9 destinations, we will be launching a new website called theatlanticadventurescollection.com, and this will be launched very soon. And we have also created a YouTube channel, the Atlantic Adventures Collection, where this fan visit will be hosted and other partner destination fan visits will also be found here as well. We'd like to thank you for taking part today in this virtual fan visit, and we hope you enjoy the presentations. And please do let us know of any questions during the chat sessions. We are now going to hear from Tudor Evans, leader of Plymouth City Council.
We're so proud in Plymouth to be part of the Maritime, Military and Industrial Interreg project and working with our Atlantic City partners from Spain, Portugal, France and Ireland. For us, the project has helped us to restore the magnificent ship figureheads that hang in pride of place in the box. The box is Plymouth's new £46 million cultural destination, proudly led by Plymouth City Council in Britain's Ocean City. A museum gallery and archive, a cafe, shop and bar, a place that you can make your own and where there's always something new to discover. A place where the city's heritage meets contemporary art, where archives meet interaction, and where the Mayflower meets a mammoth. We are particularly proud to be launching our fan trip in partnership with Liverpool, who share our love of maritime, military and industrial heritage. Liverpool is a city built on maritime heritage and the importance of the water. It grew as a city thanks to its position in the northwest coast of England, facing out to Ireland and beyond to the Atlantic and to the US. It was once the world's busiest port and as a result has been the site of a wealth of maritime history. And I hope that this virtual fan and press trip will give you a taste of what these 2 amazing cities have to offer. And in the future, you can see for yourselves, and we look forward to welcoming you.
Next, we are going to showcase our maritime heritage itinerary, Spirit of Discovery. And we're going to hear from James Colton at Devon and Cornwall Walking Tour Guides, Ben from Plymouth Boat Trips, and Charlotte and the team from The Box. Again, please do feel free to pop questions in the chat box and we'll answer them after the presentation. To start off, we're going to hear from James, who's going to give us a wonderful introduction to Plymouth's heritage.
Hello, my name is James Colton and I run 2 guided tour companies here in beautiful Plymouth, Devon, UK. I run Select Southwest Tours. It's a driver guided tour, award-winning company, and we do private guided tours all across Devon and Cornwall and the wider southwest of England. But for the purposes of today, we're going to concentrate on my other company, Devon and Cornwall Tour Guides, we provide trained guides for people to step onto coaches and for other operators, and also run the only pre-bookable regular walking tours of Plymouth. Plymouth was mainly the maritime capital of the world for hundreds of years, and so what we're going to do today is give you a snippet of some of those locations, some of those little fascinating facts about history, which I hope will make you want to come here as soon as you can. My guides are mainly qualified guides with the Aquila national qualification, or others may be very experienced. For example, we have the former maritime lead at the Plymouth City Museum. So I'm looking forward to showing you some of the best that Plymouth has to offer. So we're here on Plymouth Hoe, one of the most famous pieces of land in the whole of the UK, and site of Smeaton's Tower, one of Plymouth's most notable landmarks. On the horizon, 14 miles from here, is the Eddystone Reef, a notorious reef where ships were wrecked all the time back in the day. And so the first lighthouse erected there in 1696 by Henry Winstanley. 5 years later it's destroyed in a massive storm. They built the second one. The Rudyard Lighthouse lasts for 50 years but was destroyed by fire. They commissioned John Smeaton, one of the leading engineers at the time, to build a lighthouse to last. He designs the first ever stone-built lighthouse, and he erects it on the rocks in 1759. It's a monumental success. It's there well over 100 years. In 1877 they do a survey. The rock on which it's standing is getting worn away, so they have to build the fourth Eddystone Lighthouse. The fourth Eddystone Lighthouse, the Douglas Lighthouse, you can still see on the horizon today. But Smeaton's Tower was brought back and re-erected here on Plymouth Hoe. Now, this is probably the most famous lighthouse anywhere in the world, because it was the blueprint for pretty much every lighthouse built ever since. It's a Grade 1 listed monument. You can go up and see the amazing views, but many people who come to the Hoe don't realise how important Smeaton's Tower is in the history of worldwide lighthouses. As a city with many military connections, particularly as a major naval base, things of military concern are a big interest here in Plymouth. And after World War I, the Admiralty decided to commission 3 identical war memorials to commemorate the war dead from the naval ships who were lost at sea and where there's no known grave. So 3 identical memorials designed as an obelisk which could be seen as a landmark from the ships entering the harbour were opened. One here in Plymouth, one in Portsmouth and one in Chatham, the 3 great naval bases on the south coast of England. So this memorial commemorates the men from Plymouth and Plymouth-based ships, plus members from the Commonwealth who perished at sea where there's no known grave. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 23,000 names engraved on the plinths around this memorial, and as you can imagine, a very poignant place in the memory and in the heart of people from this city. Looking out over the waters of Plymouth Sound, one of the most famous pieces of water in the whole of the world potentially. The number of voyages of discovery and exploration that have left from here reads like a roll call of history. For example, 1831, the Beagle left from here carrying Charles Darwin to South America. He came back, wrote The Origin of Species, from which we get the theory of evolution. Captain James Cook, 3 voyages charting the Pacific and Australia, 1768, 1772, 1776, mapping the whole of that eastern and western seaboard of the US, one of the most famous series of voyages ever. In 1615, Rebecca Rolfe landed here, better known as Pocahontas. Catherine of Aragon landed here in 1502. Many people think on her way to marry Henry VIII. Incorrectly, she was on her way to marry Arthur, his brother, but he died and later she married Henry. 1967, much more recently, Francis Chichester arrives here, the first ever solo circumnavigation of the world. Greeted by over 100,000 people here on Plymouth Hoe. Some of the other voyages of exploration, including the founding of Newfoundland, the colonisation of New Zealand, the wreck which landed the first people on Bermuda, all set sail from Plymouth. So here we are in the middle of Plymouth, and behind me the ruins of Charles Cross Church, second oldest church in the city. Started building it in 1641, and it was insisted at that time that it was called in the memory of King Charles, which was a bit odd because Plymouth actually supported Oliver Cromwell at that time during the English Civil War. During those bombing raids that I mentioned in March of 1941, this church was hit by incendiary bombs and destroyed. As you can see, it wasn't repaired and was left in memory of the 1,100 civilians who lost their lives during those bombing raids in those dark days of World War II. So we're here outside the Minster Church of St Andrews, the oldest church in Plymouth. It's around 550 years old. At the outbreak of World War II, Plymouth knew it would be a target because of the naval base, but it was said that it was out of range of the German bombers, which it was, from Germany, but not from France. So within a few months, Plymouth was in range. On the 20th of March 1941, the King and Queen are visiting Plymouth. The locals are terrified the news would get out and it would make Plymouth a target and prompt an attack, and so it proved to be. That night, the King and Queen had left by a train. The Blitz of Plymouth starts. Over the course of World War II, Plymouth was the most bombed city in the UK per head of population. The whole of the city centre was flattened, including the church. The next morning, the church is a smouldering ruin. A local headmistress comes along, picks up a piece of wood and scribbles a word on it, and she nails it above the door. The word was resurgam, which is Latin for I will rise again. It has a Christian connotation, but also became a symbol of hope and a slogan for the rebuilding of the city. So here we are at Plymouth Gin Distillery, one of the oldest buildings in the city. We think it dates from around 1407. Parts of it used to belong to a monastery. It became a meeting house, and we believe the Mayflower Pilgrims had their last meal here before they set sail in 1620. 1793, John Coates decides to make gin here. What a good decision. He'd got a port to bring in all the juniper and the other ingredients he needed. He'd got a fresh supply of water from Dartmoor, and he had a ready-made export market with the Royal Navy, because although the sailors drank rum, the officers drank gin. And they took it all around the world, and it became, by the 30s, one of the most famous gin brands anywhere in the world. The original martini recipe specifies Plymouth gin. And they also tell a great story on one of the lovely tours they do in this distillery about exporting 1,000 cases of Plymouth gin per week to New York City during the Prohibition. Highly recommended a visit to the Plymouth Gin Distillery. So, the building behind us, another really old building here in the centre of Plymouth. This is the Barbican, an old word meaning fortified gate in the old port part of the city. And this was the customs house. It dates from the 1580s, and where the customs officers, as Plymouth was a major trading port, where those customs officers would hang out and be available to put their taxes on all the traders coming in. And one of those traders almost certainly would have been Francis Drake. I can't guarantee it, but it's the right age, so I think Sir Francis Drake himself would have walked through these doors. Another person who would have walked through the doors, a little lad called William, because his father was one of the customs officers. His father was Francis Bligh, and young William Bligh later joins the Royal Navy and found fame as the captain of the Bounty with the famous mutiny story. And incidentally, he also sailed with Captain Cook on the third voyage in 1776. We've seen the old customs house. Behind me, the new customs house, dates from 1820. Now, during those times, Devon and Cornwall was rife with smugglers. The Crown put up taxes on luxury goods and made them out of the reach of normal people, but all the guys around Devon and Cornwall had boats, and they could get across to France and bring back brandy and port and make a little bit of money on the side, which was really crucial during those days. So in 1820, they built this. That was the date it was said that more brandy and port was brought into Devon and Cornwall illegally than went through London officially. So the customs officers here were charged with clamping down on this illegal smuggling activity which was going on right across the southwest, to varying degrees of success. We're here at the Mayflower Steps in Plymouth, and this commemorates the voyage in 1620 of the pilgrims who set sail escaping religious persecution in Europe for a new life in what's now the USA. They sailed on the Mayflower. It took them 2 months in stormy conditions to cross over, and eventually they land miles from where they wanted to be in what's now Massachusetts. They would have died without the help and assistance of the local Native American tribe, the Wampanoag, who taught them to plant the right crops and how to fertilise their crops, and befriended them certainly for the first 50 years or so. And on the anniversary of them landing in November 1621, they held a feast for 3 days between what we know now as the Pilgrims and the local Wampanoag people. That feast is what's now commemorated by Thanksgiving, one of the greatest celebrations in the USA. So these magnificent buildings are the Royal William Yard, named after King William IV. Now, in the early 1800s, Britain's naval strategy had changed and we were blockading ports in France. And so we had 20,000 sailors at sea at any one time. So there was a need to consolidate the way in which all those sailors were supplied. So this was designed by Sir John Rennie, who also built London Bridge, the one that's now in Arizona, made of Plymouth limestone and local granite. And it was the main supply depot for the Royal Navy for over 150 years. The buildings here, many of them are named after the purpose for which they were originally constructed. So we have the cooperage. The cooperage were where over 100 coopers or barrel makers worked to make all the barrels to put all the goods in that was supplied onto the ships. We had the brew house. In the early 1800s, we didn't have the technology to take fresh water on long sea journeys, and there was a beer ration. So they constructed a brewery to make beer to take on the ships. Unfortunately, just before they finished, they did discover the technology for supplying the water, so the brew house never made any beer, or very little. And we also have the Mills Bakery. That could supply 270,000 pounds, 125,000 kilograms of flour per week to make bread and ship's biscuits, to supply those sailors. And the yard closed by the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, in 1992. But it's now a fantastic place full of apartments and restaurants, and so it's still supplying food and drink, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about the offers which are now available shortly. So I hope you've enjoyed this whistle-stop tour of some of the very best locations in Plymouth. I'm James Colton, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you on the online chat later on. If you have any questions, please do put them in the box, and I'll be delighted to answer them as best I can. This is James Colton signing off. Thanks very much.
Hello, I'm Ben Squire from Plymouth Boat Trips, based in the beautiful Plymouth in Devon. We offer a fantastic choice of on-the-water boat trips, cruises, excursions. We operate daily 1-hour harbour cruises. In fact, there's a new cruise coming this year. It's called the Mayflower 400 and Plymouth Harbour Cruise. It's 1 hour in length, leaves from the Barbican landing stage just in behind us here, and we sail out across Plymouth Sound, past Plymouth Hoe and Drake's Island, up into the River Tamar, which separates the two counties of Devon and Cornwall, and we sail up the River Tamar to the Royal Naval Dockyard, to the naval base, see the various warships, submarines, frigates, destroyers on view, and then we do a turn and come back on the beautiful scenic Cornish coast on the way back down through to the Barbican. Also, we offer half-day river cruises to Calstock. That's a cracking cruise. Calstock right up the Tamar Valley. That's a really nice trip. That's 4.5 hours. We offer a range of ferry services as well. So we do the Barbican to the Royal William Yard and Mount Edgecombe ferry. That's a fantastic offering. 3 locations with the one ferry. It links the Barbican in Plymouth, the Royal William Yard, the ex-Victualling Yard, which has now been converted into a fantastic restaurant, and there's a cinema in there and various other offerings. So it stops at the William Yard and then it crosses the River Tamar to the beautiful Mount Edgecombe Country Park. So you've got the lovely outdoors there, walking, there's beaches, and then you can hop back to the William Yard and back to the Barbican. We also operate the iconic Kreml ferry, the oldest established ferry service in the UK. Dates back to the 1300s. Totally awesome. And that operates from Plymouth, Stonehouse in Plymouth, and it crosses the River Tamar to Kreml in Cornwall, which is Mount Edgecombe Country Park, every half an hour from either side. We also offer fishing trips, chartered fishing. So you get aboard the boat, we've got all of the fishing equipment, and we sail out for a 3.5-hour fishing trip, targeting all the many abundant species that we get off Plymouth and Devon, you know, from mackerel, pollock, bass, whiting, you know, there's a great mix of fish to catch, you know. So, and you keep what you catch as well. You can keep the fish that you catch, and we can even cook them for you at the Boathouse Cafe. In you come with your fish, hand them to the chefs at the Boathouse. They'll get busy with the filleting. Within half an hour, you're sat down, feasting on the fish that you caught just an hour ago. Absolute beauty. All of our trips can be booked online now. Got a really easy, simple and fast booking system. So if you click on to www.plymouthboattrips.uk, onto the online booking section, and you can pick what service you want, whether it's an hour cruise, a Calstock trip, fishing, or a ferry ride across to Kreml, or the Royal William Yard, Mount Edgecombe, or Corsand. You can book that online, and the beauty with that, once you've booked online, you just walk to the boat, queue up, show your ticket, either a paper version or on your telephone, and the crewman then will scan that with our device, thumbs up, and on you get. We also operate the Corsand ferry, which leaves from the Barbican here in Plymouth. It's a half-hour crossing across Plymouth Sound into Cornish waters. Got to be careful there. And we land onto the beautiful beach of Corsand and Kingsand. Lovely clear water, white sandy beaches. It is absolutely fantastic. Half-hour crossing off at Cornwall, Corsand in Cornwall, and then you've got lots to do. You can hang on the beach, there's pubs, cafes, restaurants, walking, loads to do. And back on the ferry, and we can bring you directly back into Plymouth. Another great thing which you know is very, very popular is that you can get, for example, the Kreml ferry, all right, from Plymouth across to Kreml. You can then do the coastal walk, which is about 3 miles from Kreml along the coast to Corsand. So you know, it's really popular to get one ferry, walk the coastal walk, and then return on the other ferry. So you could go from the Barbican to Corsand, off you get, do the beautiful coastal walk, and get on the ferry from Kreml back to the Barbican, or the Kreml ferry across to Stonehouse. So we've got loads of way of linking up these ferry services. It all connects together with the timetables. You can see all the amazing sites, loads to do, all linked in via water transport. We're also operators of the Boathouse, which is a seafood restaurant just off the famous Mayflower Steps here on the Barbican. We're seafood led. We do offer various different food choices, but fishing is what it's all about at the boathouse. We've got our own fishing boats which catch our own fish that are served up here at the boathouse. So it's super fresh, great product, sustainably caught, and we're also supporting our local fishermen, which I think is really, really important. So, yep, come down to the boathouse, great venue, plenty of room. Visit www.theboathousecafe.co.uk and you can book your tables online through that website. We're also operators of the Hook and Line, which is a fantastic seafood restaurant in the Royal William Yard. So one of our ferries does actually travel to the Royal William Yard. Lots of different offerings, lots of different restaurants out at the Royal William Yard. The Hook and Line, again, is seafood led. Our fleet of inshore fishing vessels catches wonderful fish. They're all day boats, so they're not, kept on the boat for days on end. It's all caught and landed in the same day. Multiple species that we can catch, really good quality monkfish, Dover sole, scallops, those beautiful nuggets of white flesh in the scallop shell, fantastic. Sea bass, mackerel, really good quality stuff. So the Hook and Line at the Royal William Yard, try and visit that one. That's www.thehookandlineplymouth.co.uk. Both of those venues you can have Cook Your Catch, which I spoke about a little bit earlier. We'll take you out fishing on fishing trips, boat fishing trips. Whatever you catch, we'll prepare for you at the boathouse or the Hook and Line. The chefs will fillet, gut, prepare, and you'll be eating that fish within half an hour that you've just caught. Fantastic experience. Cook Your Catch at the Hook and Line and the boathouse. Thanks for watching the video. If you've got any questions, you can just enter into the chat box down below and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Hello and welcome to The Box. Please listen to find out more about our maritime offer.
My name is Louisa Blight and I am the Collections Manager here at The Box. There are over 2 million objects in our collections, some of which are on display here in our 100 Journeys gallery. The reason we call it 100 Journeys is because of Plymouth's inherent relationship with the sea and the fact that people have both left and returned to Plymouth as a destination, but also as a point of exploration. We think about household names such as Sir Francis Drake, who went on a circumnavigation of the globe. He went out to explore areas of the world that had never seen before. We have a fantastic item in our collection dating back to 1513, which he took on his journey, and it has an area of land called Terra Incognita, which means unknown lands. In the same spirit, think about in 1620, people leaving this very city to explore new land in America on board the Mayflower. Here at The Box, until December 2021, you can see Mayflower 400 Legends and Legacy, which talks about the stories both on the UK side and in America, challenging some perceptions about that very long and very involved history. It also brings in objects from all over the world, including the Netherlands and of course the US. In the 100 Journeys gallery, we talk briefly about that fantastic story, and behind me you can see the fantastic globe which brings to life those amazing stories of movement around the globe, leaving from Plymouth. In the 1960s, like his namesake, Sir Francis Chichester also went on a circumnavigation of the globe, starting this idea of sailing as being part of Plymouth's history. From Plymouth Hoe, you can see the Sound in all its glory, full of craft of all shapes and sizes. Military vessels from the Royal Navy, fishing vessels, but also pleasure craft, sailing. People love to be on the water here. Clearly, Plymouth has been a place for exciting journeys to begin for many hundreds of years, but it continues to be a place where stories and journeys begin. In 2019, Greta Thunberg, the Swedish activist, left from Plymouth. In 2021, the Mayflower autonomous ship will depart from Plymouth 400 years after the Mayflower set sail from the same city.
I'm Steve Conway and I'm conservator at the Box, and I was responsible for restoring and conserving these wonderful figureheads we have on display. The history of Plymouth as a maritime port goes back centuries, and relatively speaking, the figureheads are quite a new addition to the maritime heritage of Plymouth. The figureheads we have on display here range from 1831 right through to the end of the 19th century, and so represent the Victorian period. We've had them conserved and restored because in terms of decorative art, ships' figureheads are extremely vulnerable, particularly in our northern European climate, and many of the figureheads were lost over the years. We've managed to save 14 of them. Previously there were approximately 70 figureheads down at Devonport Dockyard. The figureheads at the Box are one of the finest collections in the UK, and they're also suspended in a unique aerial display unlike any other figurehead collection you've seen. To do that, we had to conserve and restore the figureheads and provide robust internal mounts, and once you come to the Box and sit amongst them, you'll see how amazing they look.
Hello, I'm Charlie Pascoe. I work at the Box. I'm the commercial manager here. So as a tour operator, when you come to the Box, there's a lot of opportunities and options available to you. For 2022 and onwards, we will have an off-the-shelf package for tours, which will be our Highlights tour. The Highlights tour will look at our permanent collection, so that will include Port of Plymouth, 100 Journeys, our art, and also Mammoth Gallery. As tour operators, the off-the-shelf option doesn't necessarily always work, so one thing we can do is we can work with you to provide a bespoke tour option that is catered to your specific requirements. The members of my team can do that directly with you to make it as seamless as possible. As add-ons to the tours, we can also offer catering packages within our restaurant, so we can offer cream teas, afternoon teas, lunch, even evening meals. We can cater at the moment for 60, but in a minute we'll be able to cater for about 110 people in total within our restaurant area. Obviously it is open to the public at the same time. If you would like a more private dining experience, we have a meeting room within our mezzanine level which has a window overlooking the figureheads and the restaurant public areas, and that area can hold between 10 and 40 people depending on what you would like and what you need for your group. From an entering perspective, we are a free-to-enter venue. We currently offer ticketing, which we can enable group bookings for, but hopefully in the future we will be a completely free-to-enter venue that doesn't require any ticketing options and is a very permeable space. As part of the Box, we also offer other things. For 2022, we will be hosting British Art Show. It's a really exciting show that will really showcase some of the fantastic contemporary art happening in the UK. Outside of the Box building, we also have Elizabethan House, which is currently in its final stages of refurbishment, which will offer a really fantastic insight into the history, the last 400 years of the Barbican and Plymouth. Also, as part of the Box, we have Smeaton's Tower, which is an iconic structure that stands on Plymouth Hoe. From the top, you can have amazing views of Plymouth Sound. We can arrange group visits, so anything over a group of 10, we can offer a 10% discount. This also stands for Elizabethan House and exhibitions here at the Box. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed looking at the box. Please put your questions in the chat box and I will answer them during the Q&A.
Thank you for those wonderful presentations showcasing Plymouth key maritime heritage experiences. I'm now joined with James from Devon and Cornwall Walking Tours and David from Plymouth Boat Trips. Hello both, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi Joe.
You both well?
Splendid.
Very well.
Marvellous. Well, we have some questions through. First one for you, James, was a question about the walking tours and the languages that you can offer, the foreign languages that you can offer for groups and tours.
Yeah, we've got a number of guides, particularly fluent German speakers and French speakers. One of the Germans is a naturalised German. The other one's very, very good German language speaker. So yes, we can offer them in both French and German.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Dave, over to you. Ben mentioned the new Mayflower cruise. Can you tell us a bit more about this and when it will start?
Yeah, we're quite excited about our Mayflower cruise. It was due to start last year, but obviously with the COVID pandemic, we've delayed things by a year. So it's going to be starting on the 1st of April officially, but cruising will hopefully start on the 12th of April. And it's going to be a historic commentary on the cruise as we're sailing off from just next to the Mayflower Steps. So there's lots of historic facts and stories about the Mayflower itself and about the journey that they went on before we then move up into Devonport Dockyard and resume our commentary about the historic dockyard area of Plymouth. So yeah, we're quite excited about this new cruise.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. We look forward to hearing more about that. James, a question for yourself that's come through. If you're a new visitor to the city and not been to Plymouth before, putting you on the spot now, what would you say are the top 3 historical things to experience while you're in Plymouth? And I'm going to hold you to 3.
Oh my goodness. There's so many as the sort of video showed, I think. It's such a historic city. Picking out 3 is pretty difficult, but for me, I suppose, going on to Plymouth Hoe and going to Smeaton's Tower, I think is one of our most iconic landmarks. And that's arguably the most famous lighthouse anywhere in the world because it was the blueprint for the design of pretty much every lighthouse built from 1759 onwards. So that's a great experience to go up there. The views from the top are stunning. So I'd certainly put that high on the list. You have to go to the Barbican, but the Fly Steps and stuff is great. I really wander around some of the back streets down there. The New Street and maybe visit the Elizabethan House, Elizabethan Gardens. Something in that area, I think, would be a really good place to visit. And where else? Ooh, which one do I choose? I'm probably going to say Royal William Yard. Fantastic collection of buildings, restaurants, and boutiques and stuff. And you can get there very easily on the boat trips, and that's a good place to go as well, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Dave, Ben mentioned in the presentation about the waterlink connections now, and there's been a lot of change, I think, in Plymouth over the last 3 or 4 years, where there seems to be a lot more water-based connections now to connect up the waterfront, to connect the city. So can you let us know where, in terms of your organisation, where visitors can go now in terms of waterlink ferry connections across Plymouth?
That operate from the Barbican itself. So we've got the Barbican to the Corsan Beach ferry, link Plymouth with Rain Peninsula, which is absolutely stunning. It's the perfect location for a family day out or to start one of the coastal walks around such a beautiful area. We've also got the ferry that links up to Mount Edgecombe House in Cremel, So the Kreml ferry service is one of the oldest passenger services in the country, and it's a very short crossing. It only takes 8 minutes, but it can be spectacular. You've got the background of the Royal William Yard just behind you, and we often get frigates coming past us and things. So you can get a really good sort of view of any warships and things that happen to be going out to sea on that particular service. And it's another great family day out over at Matt Edgecombe House. Spending time exploring the country parks and things. We've also got the service that then links up the Barbican, the Royal William Yard, and Mount Edgecombe itself. So that's like a connecting ferry between 3 different locations. And that's a really, really popular route, especially with the amount of tourists that come into the Barbican itself, because they can hop on and hop off that service. So they can nip across to the Royal William Yard and experience, some of the fantastic restaurants and bars and shops that are actually at the yard itself, and then nipping across to Mount Edgecombe to see the Camellia collection, to wander up to see the sort of the Earl's Garden and things. It really is such an important water link. It's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dave. James, just back to you a minute. In terms of Plymouth, we're obviously talking about maritime heritage here in Plymouth. Plymouth has a very strong link with the Royal Navy. And obviously we're still, the frigates coming in, as Dave said, on the Plymouth boat trips, you can see them. What sort of things can you see now in Plymouth in terms of that connects them back to the history with the Royal Navy?
Well, there's obviously the connection with the Royal Navy goes back many centuries. I think 1691 from memory is when the boats started supporting it. So you've got obvious things like the Royal William Yard, which I mentioned previously. You've got lots of other connections with things military generally. We saw some in the video I did earlier, like the War Memorial. We've got quite a lot of things which are distinctly linked. Everything in the city is linked in some way to the Royal Navy in many ways, and all that history we talk about has clearly got a naval connection. Whether that's where shipwrecks, naval wrecks took place, which was one of the guys involved with that was the inspiration for the Hornblower books. You've got everywhere is connections with the Royal Navy, so it's hard to pick out one really. But for example, there is an opportunity to go on a nuclear-powered submarine with the visits to the naval base, which have to be booked in advance. But that's a pretty unique experience, which is only, I think, 2 other places in the world where you can do that, one in France, one in the USA. There are lots of different opportunities.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. And welcome, Charlie, from the box. Thank you for joining us this morning. Question for yourself that's come through. The 14 figureheads looking absolutely amazing. And obviously I know they do form part of tours at the box as well. But is there an opportunity for visitors or tour operators to book a talk or something that really talks about the restoration of the figureheads and how they were conserved at all?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously we have our highlights tour, which touches on them briefly, but we are able to offer bespoke options, such as talks on different aspects of the box. Not a problem at all.
Brilliant. So another question for yourself. We've heard about Smeaton's Tower. Obviously, it's our most iconic symbol for Plymouth as well. And tell us about the tours there that are available that visitors can go up and see the tower.
Okay, so with Smeaton's Tower, it's self-led. As you can imagine, it's quite a small space, but we can offer group bookings of over 10 people. And if we have it far enough in advance and there's enough people, we can actually shut the tower so that you have complete access just within your group.
Perfect. Thank you. And another question that's come through, Dave. Plymouth boat trips. In terms of the cook and catch, Ben was talking about the cook and catch experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the options that are available then afterwards at the boathouse? Because that sounds a great hands-on immersive experience for visitors to the city to understand about our sort of seafood connections there.
Yeah, definitely. Cook and catch it's one of the unique selling points really of our fishing trips, and the link that we've got with the boathouse down on the Barbican. Passengers are able on our public and private trips to go out on a 3.5-hour fishing trip. Catch their supper. It will be then bagged up for them. They'll head up to the boathouse, hand their fish directly into the chefs at the kitchen door. And whilst they sit and relax with a glass of wine and some nibbles, that the chefs will prepare their meal. It then comes out. It's kind of like a family sharing meal. It all gets put in the middle of the table, and everyone can sort of help themselves and serve themselves with it. It's really popular, and it's really good to be able to see sort of the fish coming directly from the sea to the plates. The customer is bringing it up. It can be done on a private basis as well. The chefs are more than happy to come out and do sort of filleting displays and to give talks about the fish themselves. So it's really, really popular, and it's a great thing that can be done. We can also do it from the other restaurants that Ben owns down at the Royal William Yard. So on a private basis, that can be brought into the hook and line and can be done there as well.
Perfect, thank you. Just keeping you on that sort of note, in terms of capacities, so with groups coming in from tour operators who are obviously listening today, in terms of the sort of size of groups you can take in both the boathouse, on the boats and hook and line, could you let us know the sort of capacities that are available?
Yeah, definitely. It's the fishing trips are capped to about 20 passengers because of the size of the vessel. We are able to bring in additional vessels if need be to get large groups to go out together, spread over different vessels. In terms of the cruise boats, they can go up to 240 passengers on our largest cruise vessel. We've got 3 different cruise boats, so it varies as to what sort of boat will be on which tour. And then the ferries can go up to about 105 on the ferries themselves. The boathouse down on the Barbican, she can sit, I think it's about 130 people out on the terrace and with the outside seating. And she's a perfect location to sit and sort of watch the world go past with the roof retracted back and the boats departing directly in front of her. And then down at the hook and line, she is slightly smaller. She can take up to about, I think it's about 65 people. And it's such sort of atmosphere down there. It really does fit in with the vibe of the Royal William Yard.
Brilliant, thank you. Charlie, just a question from the presentation about the Elizabethan House. Obviously exciting to hear this is being renovated and opening soon. Could you tell us a little bit more about what there is to offer there for groups, and perhaps are you able to give an indication of when it can open?
When is the question? So Elizabethan House, along with Smeaton's Tower, it all depends on social distancing. It's quite a small space. What we will have on offer when it's open is bookable group tours, and it will be done that way so that you can fully experience the building. So it will be up to 12 people per group, and those groups will be staggered going in. And the idea is that it's a fully immersive experience using state-of-the-art AV and digital. So you will go in and you'll immerse yourself in the history of Elizabethan House. And as I said, they're bookable tours anyway, so they're perfectly designed for travel trade.
Marvellous. So I can see a really good morning itinerary coming up now. So a visit to the Elizabethan House with a walking tour with James, and a boat trip with Plymouth Boat Trips, really focusing on the maritime heritage here within Plymouth. Was there anything else any of you wanted to add in or say during this session? James, was there anything you wanted to?
Yeah. Joe, if I could just say, I think visitors to Plymouth, it's the amount of maritime history that's there is so sort of overwhelming. Thousands of people come and just wander around, and they don't seem to get the opportunity to really get behind what's there. So I would urge people who are visiting the city to take a tour, whether that's a walking tour with us, whether that's a boat trip with a tour, whether that's the box or the Elizabethan House. Those tour guides, whoever they may be, will help to really bring the city alive, I think, and I think that makes a big difference in people's enjoyment of visiting the city. You know, people wander up to Plymouth Hoe and go, "Oh, it's a lighthouse," without really understanding what a significant building that is and how important it is, you know, to the worldwide sort of story of lighthouses, actually. And that sort of example is really magnified across the city as well. So I would say, you know, whoever is providing the tour, doesn't really matter, but, you know, people getting a tour and getting really under the skin and really getting to understand that history and bring it alive would really enhance people's experience of visiting Plymouth.
Completely agree. I've lived in the city for a number of years and I'm still learning. There's a lot to find out. Dave, was there anything you wanted to add about anything new you're doing this year to update the tour operator on the trade?
This year there's lots of exciting sort of things happening in the pipeline. We're just actually in the design stages of changing our Kreml ferry into an electric passenger boat.
Right.
That's a big thing that we're sort of focusing on at the moment. And then, you know, all of our sort of boats are able to be sort of bespokely hired on a basis that would suit whatever sort of tour groups coming across. You know, we're more than happy to work with James and Devon and Cornwall Tours, you know, and have somebody German speaking come on board to do the commentary and tailor the trip for the passengers that are coming on board. But the Barbican waterfront area is such an outstanding area. I think it's one of the top that really should come and sort of get to grips with the history of Plymouth.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Charlie, was there anything you wanted to add in terms of what's happening, what's new that you wanted to inform the trade as well? Here she comes. Charlie, you might need to come off mute. I think we've lost voice connection there. Okay, sorry about that, Charlie. We will hear from you later in the military and the industrial Q&A session as well. Well, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us this morning on our Maritime Heritage Q&A session, and thank you for your great presentations as well. Please do, we're now going to take a short break and we're going to come back about 10:30. So in the meantime, if you have got a chance to look at the network booths or network with some of the attractions here, that would be fantastic. And we'll join you again at 10:30. Thank you all.